Okay. So the first thing I want to say here is that at the beginning of this class, I told you that I hate grid snap. This might be an instance where grid snap is okay. Okay. So grid snap, let's talk about it here for a moment. If you turn it on and right click and you go to settings, it's the one in the bottom bar there that says grid snap. Right click it and go to settings. What this is going to do is allow your mouse to actually snap to a particular spacing in the model. So I'm going to exaggerate it here first and then go back to something that's a little simpler. So I'm going to say 5 feet. So with grid snap on, let me pretend that I'm just placing a point. Actually, you know, I'll just show you with this. So I'm going to copy this element from the midpoint and I'm going to try to put it in the model somewhere. But see how as I'm moving it around, it's kind of, I mean, it's snapping. That's what it's doing. It's snapping to the grid spacing of 5 feet. In most cases, grid snap is almost inevitably going to lead you down a path of destruction, because you're going to accidentally snap to the grid when you mean to snap to this, right? It happens all the time. So what we're going to do is turn the grid snap on only, well, specifically for certain reasons. We're going to turn it on just so that we can get certain spacings right. And the reason I say that is because as designers, we're responsible for creating a certain rule set for how these elements apply. And I gave you some, but now you have to design in, well, are my beam elements only going to be spaced on a 1 foot grid? Or is it going to be a 1 foot grid and 3 feet grids? You know, whatever the case is, you guys might create a cadence. I call it a cadence. It's a regular spacing in a systematic way with how you're placing these things. So the grid snap setting should be something that's reasonably small, or whatever your smallest element is. Usually, if I'm going to use grid snap, I'll make it something like 0.5 feet or 1 foot. I'm going to put it on 1 for now. So here with this element, I just snapped it directly to the midpoint. I don't know if that's going to work out properly, but what I would suggest is actually locking this to the bottom. And for those of you who missed that, I just did a move command, grabbed the bottom corner, and moved it to the bottom. I'll show you it again. Actually, I did that too fast. The move command, hit enter, grab this corner, and see how it's trying to snap? Well, I need to make sure that when I get to the bottom that it actually says end, or intersect, or perpendicular, whatever it is, and then click. So if I'm going to space certain things, let's say on this object I want to put one that's 3 feet up from the bottom, and then on the other side of the plane I'm going to do one that is 1 foot up from that. All I have to do is just hold, click on the green thing, and 1, 2, 3. That's really it. That's 3 feet up. And then I'll copy one to the other side, like that, and then grab that and go up another 1. So this system is something that you can choose if you want, or you could just do, you know, just grab it, place it, move it, make it very sort of sculptural in essence. It's up to you to set the system, but I don't want you to spin your wheels on trying to make this super eloquent system. Just pick something and roll with it, and we'll figure it out from there. Oh, I think I actually grabbed the wrong element. I did. So see how this is horizontal? Generally speaking, you want your plane, the orientation of the beam to match the orientation of the plane. You can do this, but only for very specific reasons. This is just a design critique on that. So what I would suggest, these are actually kind of oriented improperly. these should probably be with this. These should be with this. And these will be a rotation of this. So what I just did is a personal preference. I'm looking at it as a designer and thinking that I want the beams to be in the orientation as the plane. So I replace it with this, copy here to there. Oh, can't see it. Zoom select. See, this stuff happens often. Okay, so you're kind of just seeing some of the process here. Grab that and I can go 1, 2, 3, and copy command. I'm going to grab the outside face to connect it right there. So notice how this is the perpendicular object snap, not an endpoint or an intersection, because there's nothing intersecting it. It's just my track is going into it, and so it's perpendicularly intersecting. Click that and grab this and go up 1 foot. Okay, so with the size beam that I'm working with, I have some slippage in the space there, right? So I can play with that however I want. So what is the next step for this, right? So we need to basically start pushing and pulling and creating an actual system with it. And now what I showed you before with the gumball is part of your design process. So you can Control-Shift-Click on that face and you can pull it a certain number of feet off to the side. Control-Shift-Click that, pull it out that way, and this just gives you a way to start to mount these things together. Actually, let me make a copy of, let me just move this up to the top. So I haven't quite figured out any design system yet, but I'm going to move that up to the top to just show you how one system bleeds into the next. So if this beam beam's going to kind of slip off to the right and I need to get another one down there, I'm going to grab this, copy, put it here, and it looks like, see how I accidentally snapped to an object snap that was a little bit too low? So let me grab that and set it on top. Pull that back a little bit, pull it in. And now we're able to start building our secondary system on the top. Okay, so now I'm going to go back up and grab a lighter weight system, grab a medium system, something like that. CS. Oops. Did you guys see that? Accidentally twisted it. Anyway, so another thing I want to show you here is if you control, like I'm looking at this from the opposite side, if I don't feel like flipping this thing around, oh, did you have a question? Oh, no. Okay. So if I don't feel like spinning this thing around and clicking on the actual face, I can Control-Shift-Click as long as I know that the face that I window select is the only face that's going to be in it. I can just drag across that and it's still going to select that face. Or if I Control-Shift-Click and I grab the end, oh, it didn't give me an option there. Control-Shift-Click, weird. Anyway, there. Okay, so what you're going to find is that the rule set where, actually let me check the rule sets here. So what this says is only one connection per side of an element. I think I'm going to change this to say one connection per side of a beam element. And that's because now that I'm kind of looking at it in a little bit more detail from the design process end, I have a feeling that you're going to want to be using this size with, you might want to have two. I wouldn't go more than 3 on one face, but there would be some cases where you'd want to take this and have a secondary one a little bit below. Okay? So, what questions do you have about this design process before I release you guys to do a little bit of lab time on it and help you out individually as you're working through it? Yes?
For making a 3-sided enclosed space, you see how the first planar element that you have, the, I guess, more violet, blue, whatever color that is, there's a gap in between, and then for your third planar element, like since you have 2 already, for your third planar element, if, like, I guess my question is, if there's a gap in between, are you still considering that enclosed?
Yes. Yeah, good question. You mean like right here? Like this?
No, if you turn it more, yeah. It just like looks like there's a gap in between those if you have it rotated a certain way. So that's what I was wondering.
Well, I don't know what you're referring to in terms of a gap, but yes, it's not going to be fully enclosed. If you take a look at the images here, see how like there's an opening there and there's some gaps in that system. You can kind of see through this one. The idea is not to make it like a weatherproof enclosure. It's that it's more of like a shelter. Okay. Other questions? You had a question, right?
No, you kind of answered.
Okay.
So, for example, how you have the 20 by 20 at 100% opacity, when we design our object, we could switch it up, right?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. So if for some reason I have maybe one here, like maybe there are 2 here for some reason, and I'm not really following my rule set, but maybe there are 2. This one very well could be a 15% opacity one. So, or what? Sorry, 100%. Like you're going to go through the process of switching these so that some read and some won't, So that's going to be part of our materiality and design exercise. So don't focus too much on that system right now, switching the planes, but if you have a thought about it, try it out. Yeah.
So the shape doesn't have to stay with the opacity?
It does not, no. Yeah, it's fully pliable, and these beams don't have to stay what they are. You can change them, different colors, whatever you think is fitting. Yes?
So it's fine to keep them like the plain colors that we had before, because I didn't get the chance to change the colors.
Just like a dark gray?
No, it's like red and green and purple.
Sure, that's fine. I was just saying that I was just doing that from like a workflow conversation sort of thing. Like that's the way I would do it because it is sort of a design exercise, and you are going to eventually be thinking about how your grayscales are playing with your translucencies. So you can do it now, you don't have to, but eventually you're going to have to be thinking about it, and I would suggest doing it at some point next week. Okay? You don't have to. Any other questions? The model for this will be due on Tuesday. Yes?
So
Lots of questions.
Does it matter how many planes on each side?
No, I don't have a minimum or maximum. What I will give you kind of a ballpark reasonable number. You should probably have a minimum of like 6 to 8 planes, and like a similar number of beams in order to engage them. Kind of. Yeah. Yes.
It's kind of relevant to ask, but do we have like different like iterations of these? Like if I don't like one, I just
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to, this is your design process, so if you want to do 3 or 4 and try different things out, go for it. Yes.
For rotation, when you take it 90 degrees to the plane, or to the like the grid, when I do it, it puts half of the material underneath the grid, like underneath the XY plane.
Yes.
How do I bring it back down?
You would just move it. So if you're talking about if you grab this and rotate one, and it
Yeah,
puts part of the material below, right? Yeah, you just grab it and move it up.
How do I know if it's flush to the...
If you want it to be flush to the ground plane, you'd go in your right or left view, or front or right or whatever view, and then you can move it. Click here and just move it up to the 0.
Okay. And then it has to do with grid snap on there.
Yeah, I would suggest that with grid snap. Otherwise, what you can do is draw a line in this view from 0, 0, and then you can move it and snap to it perpendicular. Okay. So what I'm going to do is release you all to start working with this, and I'm going to kind of, basically float around and spend some time with some of you guys who are less experienced with Rhino, make sure that I'm not missing any major gaps, and those of you who are more experienced, just make sure you understand the assignment.